What's going on, YouTube? Now, you all have been asking for more German vehicles for a very long time. But today, the wait is finally over. So we are thrilled to announce that we have now added Mercedes-Benz to our portfolio. And to start things off, we have their newest, most affordable, and arguably most technologically advanced product, the A-Class. Now, before we go any further, we do want to specially thank our new friends at James Motor Company in Lexington for letting us check out this highly optioned A-Class. And if you're in the market for any new Mercedes product, be sure to stop by their gorgeous showroom or visit them via their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with all that said, let's see if the most affordable Benz still gives you a great luxury experience. So getting started here at the exterior, the A-Class is one of the very first Mercedes products to get the newest evolution in their design language. That means up front, we have a more aggressive look, with a wide grille and slanted angular headlights. Now, as far as the grille itself, this is actually the less aggressive design in the base progressive model. However, if you choose the AMG line, you get the diamond block grille, as well as larger and more angular openings on the lower fascia. Turning to the headlights, they stay the same no matter which design group you choose, so they will always be this full LED setup. You can, however, still add active cornering lamps in the exterior lighting package. Now, moving on to the side, this is really the only area where you're reminded just how small the vehicle is. It measures in at 179.1 inches long, which is a little over 3 inches shorter than the current Mercedes CLA. However, I will say that the more upright shape of the body does wonders for interior space, as we'll see a little later in the video. And then heading around to the rear, it again has the latest design language, where the taillights are more horizontal versus what you'll find in the rest of the Mercedes sedan lineup. And of course, they are fully LED as well. Finally, down at the bottom, you have dual horizontal exhaust outlets to set things off. But overall, I think Mercedes has done a great job with the A-Class's exterior. It's often very difficult to make a small vehicle look good, but I think they've accomplished that here. Now, another big aspect of the styling are the wheels, and you've got plenty of options to choose from. These are the optional 18-inch 5-spoke contrast alloys that replace the base model 17-inch alloys. Additionally, when you choose the AMG line, that opens you up to 4 more options: a light or dark 18-inch AMG 5-spoke alloy, or a light or dark 19-inch AMG multi-spoke alloy. Next up, we've got the mirrors, which are always heated, and with the premium package are also auto dimming and power folding. Additionally, we have the optional blind spot monitoring system for $550. And since we're on the topic of safety, let's talk about all the advanced safety systems that you can get on this car. Mercedes did not skimp here just because this is their cheapest vehicle. So all models come with automatic emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. And then further adding the driver's assistance package gives you active lane keeping assist and active blind spot monitoring, which can both steer you out of harm's way, as well as the really neat semi-autonomous driving system called Active Distance Assist Distronic. And what that does is basically just allow you to relax a little on your commute, though you do still need to keep your hands on the wheel. And finally, the last thing to mention here on the outside is the 13.5 gallon fuel tank, which is good for 378 miles of range on premium unleaded fuel. But anyways, that's it for the outside. So now let's get to the real highlight of the vehicle, which is the high-tech cabin. So every version of the A-Class does come standard with this nice Mercedes key fob, which even has real metal trim down here on the bottom. Now the actual smart entry system, that is optional in the A-Class. However, you do get remote start, and that comes via the Mercedes Me app. And then of course, to get inside the vehicle, all you have to do is grab behind the handle, and there is a sensor to unlock it. And when you do, you will also notice the power folding mirrors come out. So checking out the cabin of the new A-Class, as you can see, it really makes a strong first impression. Now of course, in typical Mercedes fashion, you can change out just about every piece of this cabin. So starting out with your standard MBUX seats, which is what we have. That is a synthetic leather, and we have it in macchiato beige, but you could also get black, neva gray, or black with suede inserts if you go for the AMG line. You can also choose to go with full leather seats, and they come in black, Bahia brown, classic red, or titanium gray. And then if you turn over to the trim, there are 4 different types of trims you can get. You can get 2 different types of aluminum on the standard model, or you can get the optional black linden wood, which is what we have, or a brown walnut. Now turning over here to your door trim, it is beautifully finished. You have a nice leather material all through the armrest area with the color contrast stitching. And then above that, you got some more of this beautiful open pore wood trim. Now as far as your windows, they are naturally all 4 fully automatic. And then of course, in typical Mercedes fashion, you do have your door mounted seat controls. And these are really nice seats. They're actually 12-way power adjusting with 4-way lumbar support, as well as this 3-person memory as standard equipment. That's particularly impressive for this class. You will also notice we have the optional heated seats, and you can also add optional ventilation as well. And down here on the actual seat itself, this is your lumbar support, and it is also worth noting that you have a manual thigh extension feature as well. Now one other thing I want to point out about this seat is that there is an available multi-contour seating package. And that basically gives you a few more ways of adjustment, as well as includes a feature called Seating Kinetics. And what this does is basically just make small adjustments to various parts of the seat a little bit at a time to more or less ward off fatigue on a long drive. And then, like I already mentioned, this is the MBUX synthetic leather. However, it has a really realistic feel. I doubt most people would be able to notice the difference from real leather. So like I said, at first glance around this cabin, it certainly makes a strong first impression, and nothing in here will make you think of entry level. That definitely does apply to the material selection as well. So you do have a nice soft touch plastic across all of the upper dash, and then dropping down to the middle part, you've got more of this beautiful open pore wood, which basically flows all continuously onto the door trim, as well as back behind that screen and out the other side. As far as your middle portion, you do have this nice perforated leather material. And then down below, you've got some piano black trim, and everything does fit together really, really nicely. And of course, you do have standard push button start. When you press it, you will notice the really impressive all-new MBUX system fire up. Now on the A-Class, you do have a standard dual 7-inch display setup. However, we have the optional 10.25-inch dual displays. And we'll get into all this a little bit later in the video. It's really, really a comprehensive system, and this is the first Mercedes to get it. Now checking out the gauges over here themselves, they are of course highly customizable, and it's kind of difficult to distinguish really between this side and this side since it's all part of one cohesive MBUX system. However, I'll do my best to cover some of the features that about just these gauges. So the controls for the driver's display are located here on the left side. And you've got your home button, a back button, and then basically a touch slider. This is how you navigate through the system. Now, what you'll see is you've got 3 zones. You've got your speedometer zone, the middle zone, and the tachometer zone. And all 3 of these are customizable. So if I start swiping through here, you can see I can change all these designs and go to lots of different types of information like radio and stuff like that. Or I can, of course, stick with the traditional tach, which is the default. Now if I swipe back over to the right, I'm in the middle, and I can go through here and pull up a bunch of other types of information. And then if I swipe over to this side, right, same deal. I've got different set of information, so as you can see, each one of these zones can be customized to whatever your heart desires. Now additionally, I can go down here to the bottom part and click on the display button. And this is where I can change the entire display. As you can see now, we've got an energy consumption bar. And then furthermore, we have another layer of information that we can go between. So you can change what appears in the center, so we can use extra navigation functions. And when you hit full screen, then you now have the giant full screen map here. So in a similar way to Audi's virtual cockpit, now you can have the map take up most of your gauges, which is directly in front of your line of vision, and you can additionally have it up in the main display as well. And we don't have it, but additionally you could have an optional head-up display. But anyways, coming back to the steering wheel itself, you do have electric power steering here, and you will always find a nice leather-wrapped steering wheel. It can also be flat-bottomed if you go for the AMG line. Now as far as the buttons themselves, like I was going over, these have to do with your gauge displays. And I want to point out they're all really, really nice metal feeling as well. Then on this side, these have to do with your main display. And this goes as part of the system, which I'll get into this a little later in the video, but how you have multiple tiers of control for each display. And then you do have your traditional phone, voice, and audio controls. Back behind the shifter, you will notice you have standard paddle shifters. And the steering wheel itself is manually tilt and telescoping, and you can also add heating as an option. Now in typical Mercedes-Benz fashion, you do have the column-mounted stock shifter. So it's very simple to use. All you have to do is press down for your drive, and then you can shift manually with these paddle shifters. Reverse is located all the way up at the top. And then when you do put the car into reverse, you'll see the standard backup camera with active trajectory fire up. Now there is also a surround vision 360-degree camera system with auto parking abilities, and that is available in your parking assistance package. However, we don't have that. And then for park, all you're going to do is just press the end of the stock. Now moving on to interior storage. This is very important for a small vehicle, and the Mercedes A-Class definitely excels. So starting out over here with your center console, you've got the dual opening armrest. And as you can see, it's actually really deep in there. And of course, it is finished nicely with a felt lining. You also notice you've got 2 USB Type-C ports in there as well. Up in front of that, you've got 2 adjustable cup holders, as well as another really big area with plenty of space to set a phone. And the bottom of that is actually a wireless phone charger as well. And then you find another USB Type-C port right here. And in case you're wondering if you've got a traditional device with a traditional USB port, the Mercedes does supply a adapter so that you can still use these Type-C ports. Alrighty, now that brings us back here to this area. The main part of this is a new trackpad interface so that you can control the MBUX system. But you will also notice some buttons off to the side. This really nice metal toggle here actually pulls up your drive modes. As you can see, you've got 3 different modes, as well as an individual mode where you can just tailor the various parts of the car to your taste. And then this button here does a similar thing, but for the safety systems. Alright, now coming over here to the audio system, I actually could not find information on how many speakers and how many watts the standard sound system has. However, I do know there is an optional 590 watt 12 speaker Burmester premium audio system. However, we have the standard audio system, but we'll go ahead and take a listen to that. Sound quality is actually very impressive for a bass sound system. But anyways, the next step up here will bring us to the climate controls. Now you do have this is the standard dual zone automatic setup. All of the A classes come with this. As you can see, you've got these really nice metal buttons and toggles to control all the various functions. When you make adjustments, they do show up on this top display as well. And another neat feature of the system is that you'll see when you adjust the temperature up, you have a red ambient light on the vents, and when you adjust it down, the vents turn blue. So that's a very cool touch and really goes well with all the other ambient lighting in this vehicle. This one particularly has the 64 color ambient lighting, so you can do split colors and a bunch of cool stuff just like you can in the S class, excuse me. So really neat looking, especially as it gets dark here. But anyways, that brings us up to the MBUX system, which is definitely the big highlight of the car. So let's go ahead and dig into that. So like I said, this is a all new system, totally unrelated to the old command system. And it's got a lot of differences. Basically, it's got a lot of processing power, and it now has an AI feature that basically learns from what you do as well as what other people with this system do. So over time, it's going to get smarter and smarter. Now, one of the biggest changes for this system versus command is that you've got 4 input methods, 4 ways to control the system. Down here at the bottom, you've got this trackpad, which I pointed out earlier, and this you just swipe across to go to various things, and you have a home button, back button, and all that stuff. That's similar to what you had before. However, the screen itself now is a touch display. Of course, as you know, in previous most German vehicles, you could not touch the display ever. But now we have a touch display, so everything can be done right like that. The third and fourth thing are located over here on the steering wheel. The right side, this pad here, also controls that screen, so you're able to do various functions over there without taking your hand off the steering wheel. And then finally, the last thing is your voice commands, which we'll get into in a minute, but they're incredibly intelligent. Now, of course, this is my first time with the system, so I'm going to try to show you as much things as I can, but it is very detailed and very sophisticated system, so I'll probably miss a few things. But I'll start off here on the home screen. Basically, you've got your apps, and they're laid out across the top, and you can just swipe through them using, like I said, the trackpad or the touch display. So beginning over here with our first app, we have phone. So I can tap right into that. It'll bring me to first of all, my contacts. These automatically synced over from my smartphone. And then you've got different functions like your traditional dial pad and whatnot. Now I do want to mention just how sharp the graphics are. It may not come through on the camera, but the graphics are incredibly sharp, probably the sharpest I've ever seen in a vehicle. And you have really sophisticated animations that are all very, very smooth because of the fact that it has a 6-core NVIDIA processor and 8 gigs of RAM, so you're talking about full computer processing here. Alright, now jumping over to our next section, we have navigation. Now I click into this, as you can see I'm on a 3D map, and I can pinch to zoom right here on the pad, or of course on the display. Navigation is optional on the A class. But the other cool thing that it comes with is an augmented reality navigation. Now we'll go through this a little later in the test drive, but basically as you come up to a turn or whatever on your navigation route, a live feed will pop up on here and it will overlay arrows and street names and house numbers onto the actual building or whatever as you go past it. So that's something we've never seen in any type of vehicle. You do have your Mercedes Me stuff from your app on your phone, but the most important thing in here is your smartphone. This is where you can connect to the USB for either Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. Both are standard, regardless of whether you get the big display or the smaller 7-inch display. Now that is just the first layer. You actually swipe up and you go to the second tier here. This is where I can change the different themes or save a custom theme if I make some type of configuration that I want to keep. So you've got different things like lounge, and that does impact the gauge cluster as well. So you'll see we've gone into a very minimalist view for the gauges. We'll go ahead and select another one and see how that impacts it. We'll try experience. So we have kind of the sport gauges, the yellow theme there, and we go to a performance gauge on the main display. Like a smartphone, you do have a notification shade where things can pop up. You've also got a search bar, as you know, this system could take a little getting used to at first if you're used to the older command system. So you can search the system throughout the vehicle or use voice commands. And now that brings me to the voice commands, which is probably the biggest feature of this vehicle's technology. And the main thing is that it responds to natural language. So you should be able to just talk to it in a regular way. You don't have to memorize those set phrases that you're used to memorizing in other vehicles. And it does have its own phrase, like your Amazon Alexa or Google Home. So all you have to do is say, "Hey Mercedes."
How can I help you?
And it begins listening to you. "I'm cold."
I'm setting the temperature to 79 degrees.
So when you say things like "I'm cold," "I'm hot," that changes the temperature up by increments of 5 degrees, or you could tell it something specific like 80 degrees. Alright, so we'll try another one. This one's pretty cool. "Hey Mercedes."
How can I help you?
"Close the moonroof."
I'm closing the roller sun blind on the sliding sunroof.
So as you can see, you have full control over all the vehicle functions. You can do the same thing for like headlights and lighting and things like that, so it's a really a slick system. But anyways, that's all I'm going to talk about here with the brand new MBUX system. Of course, like I said, this is extremely detailed and comprehensive system, and we'll go back and make a dedicated tech help video available for those of you who want to learn more about this system. And then moving on up here, you do have an auto dimming mirror when you choose the premium package, and then you can further add these HomeLink universal remotes. And then one really nice feature you have is a standard panoramic moonroof on every A-Class. So as you can see, this glass covers most of the roof. I'm not going to open it up here because obviously it is raining, but it's a very impressive feature to have on a entry-level Mercedes. But overall, it's hard not to be impressed by the A-Class's cabin. I mean, this vehicle has features that are not even on the S-Class yet. And as you can see, really no part of the cabin feels entry-level. You have a ton of luxury and technology features, so this very much is still a high-class, very sophisticated Mercedes. But anyways, now I'll go ahead and hand it off to Mason, who will finish up the rest of the cabin. Alright, so heading into the back of the all-new 2019 A-Class, you're going to find a really large amount of space for such a small vehicle. Its technical rating is 33.9 inches of rear legroom and 37.2 inches of rear headroom. And that is almost 2 inches bigger than most of the rivals in terms of headroom, so that's something you'll definitely appreciate in such a small vehicle. Now turning over to the door trim, Mercedes doesn't mess around. So I do have leather wrapping across almost all of it. It is also color contrast stitching here, and it is even a soft touch plastic at the top. Additionally, your rear window is fully automatic, and you do have a nice metal door handle. Now the seat itself is a really nice design, so it's really comfortable, and it also has kind of a bucket design to it, and also color contrast stitching. Now in the center of the A-Class, we'll find some standard features. So they all will have these nice rear vents, which is definitely not a given in this class. And down below that, we will also find two charging USB ports. So these are actually the USB Type-Cs, and you do have an adapter if you have a regular one. Now off to the side, you do have a little bit of a storage area as well. And in addition to that, you do have a center armrest. It does fold down nicely, it's leather wrapped, and in the end, you have two pop-out cup holders. Up top, you'll definitely appreciate how much headroom this car has, as well as the really nice headliner and a nice fading in LED light. Now as far as rear space is concerned, behind Drew's driving position, I still have about 4 to 5 inches of rear legroom, and my feet can easily slide up under the seat, which is really impressive for a vehicle like this. Now with the seat all the way back, obviously I'm not going to have too much room, but that's definitely expected for the class, and it's really not too bad overall. But summed up, I'm really impressed by the all-new A-Class's rear seat. It really doesn't seem like they skimped out on a lot of the features that some of the rivals do, and it's very comfortable overall and has plenty of space, which is really all you're looking for. Now coming to the trunk of the A-Class, you will notice that has a really nice feature on the premium package models. And that feature is the hands-free releasing, so just wave your foot under the bumper, and it does open right up, and because of the dampening, it opens all the way up, so it's almost like a power trunk. Inside the trunk, you're going to find 8.6 cubic feet of space, which is a little bit smaller than the Audi A3 and Acura ILX. Mercedes does finish it really nicely back here, however. So under the floor, you do have a little area for storage, as well as a fix-a-flat kit. And the seats themselves do fold 40-20-40 split. So just grab this little handle, and it will release it. And then if you go over to the side here, it can fold down. So like I said, you just release it, and then it will fold right down. And if the seat wasn't scooted all the way back, it does fold down completely flat for plenty of storage areas. And coming over here to the passenger seat, Mercedes didn't skimp out. So you have this beautiful design with color contrast stitching, and it is also power adjusting, and it's controlled over here on the door in typical Mercedes fashion. Now in addition to that, you will also find 3-person memory seats, which I'm pretty sure is a class exclusive feature. The materials are also quite impressive in the A-Class. So in front of the passenger, we have this nice perforated design here, as well as a soft touch dashboard and some wood trim. Now down below that, we do also have a really nicely finished glove box. It does have some lighting back in there, and it's also very good sized. Up top, we have a sun visor with an LED light and mirror, and it does also detach, and it does not have an extension in the end. But anyway, guys, that sums up the rear areas of the all-new A-Class. So now let's go ahead and get to the powertrain and take it on a quick test drive. Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and talk about the powertrains. Now, this vehicle, it comes in one form. It's the A220, which is a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, 188 horsepower, and 221 pound-feet of torque. Now, in Europe, as well as some other countries, there is a 250 version, but we don't have that here in the US. As far as the transmission, you're going to have a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, and that will be paired with standard front-wheel drive or optional torque vectoring 4MATIC all-wheel drive, which is what we have. And regardless of which one you choose, you're going to have a 0-60 of 7.1 seconds, which is right in line with what the competition does. And then lastly, for your fuel economy, you actually have the same combined rating for both the front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive versions. They're both going to come in at 28 combined, though the all-wheel drive version gets 1 mpg better in the city, but then 1 mpg less on the highway.
Interesting.
And that does match exactly with the main rivals. Alrighty then, so now let's go ahead and take it for a quick test drive. Of course, you do have a tight turning circle, since this is a compact city car. Just getting underway here, I can already tell right off the bat that power feels really quite good. We have an auto start stop system, so we'll see how quickly it restarts here. Very quickly, very smooth.
And just from driving around in the parking lot here, this is a pretty active auto start stop system, which is why it probably gets as good a fuel economy as it does. So it will be activating quite a bit, but you can deactivate it if you don't like it by just pushing this button here. So that's a nice thing for Mercedes.
But it's certainly not something that intrudes. Getting underway here, I have to say right off the bat, I'm impressed by how smooth and quiet it is in the cabin. We're just cruising down the road here, about 40 miles an hour, and I can hear, I mean, it's really, really quiet.
And it's even wet roads outside right now, so that normally makes it even louder. And wow, this is a very, very impressive ride quality in here. It's something you really don't expect from a car this small. A lot of times, cars, you know, in this class maybe sacrifice the ride quality and stuff because of its size, but it doesn't seem to be the case with this A-Class.
And also the acceleration. For those of you who are worried about the 188 horsepower figure, Mercedes is worth their magic here. That's not a super high horsepower output, of course, but the acceleration definitely doesn't feel like 188 horsepower.
No, it definitely does not.
What can I do for you?
Now you'll see throughout the review that's going to be activating quite a lot, just because its thing is "Hey Mercedes," and
we keep saying Mercedes.
Yes,
again,
when you say that, sometimes it gets confused. But of course, in everyday living with a vehicle, you're not going to experience that unless you just love to talk about your car a lot.
No, probably not.
turn left.
So as you can see, our augmented reality thing is coming up. We have these street names that pop up. And as you can see,
Wow.
we have an arrow right there that has a live stream of where we're at. So this is...
That is so cool.
This is next level. This is wild. I read about it, but I have to say, experiencing this in person, yeah, it's pretty...
That is
pretty crazy.
absolutely unbelievable.
No other brand has anything like that at all. And while we're sitting here at this red light, I will mention, if you get that AMG line model, it does have the direct steering system, which is just basically speed variable and fully adaptive.
And we do have 3 different suspension setups on the A-Class, so it's nice to see Mercedes doesn't lock you into one of them, even though this is their cheapest model. So right now, what we have is the standard comfort suspension, but if you get the AMG line, you have the lowered comfort suspension, and there is also an adaptive damping suspension available for $850.
Right, and basically that would just work in with your drive modes, so that you would be able to change different settings of, you know, if I want it sportier and tighter, or, you know, looser and more comfortable.
Now turn left.
I really can't get over how cool this augmented reality thing is. That is just so crazy. I've never really... I mean, well, it's not in any other vehicle, is why I've never seen it before, but it is so
right.
cool.
When I heard about it, I had a hard time imagining how that would work in practice. I'm like, augmented reality. But this is the first car that we've seen augmented reality actually used. And I think it actually is a genuinely useful feature. It is not a gimmicky type of feature. This is something that I really think will make your navigating easier, because you've got the visual component.
And when we were
Turn
in
this way, the arrows that
Exactly.
pop up and move as you go, because sometimes certain intersections can be confusing, and you may turn onto a nearby road, for instance, and this is going to give you an arrow that points you right in exactly the right place.
And in addition to that, you know, when we were in the neighborhood, it put the road, like their street number, on the house. So if you were going to like a friend's house or something, you didn't know exactly which house is which, it had that specific house labeled. So that it is just very useful.
Prepare to make a U-turn, then you will have reached your destination.
So taking off, I want to talk about the DCT now. This is a really smooth transmission. You know, old school DCTs kind of have that thing where they're kind of rough, can get jarred and easily thrown off. But this car is pretty good. Definitely when you're up here, up and moving, it shifts through gears lightning fast. You can't feel them at all. There's none of that roughness that, like I said, that older cars used to exhibit. But overall, to say I'm impressed by this vehicle would be an understatement. It really just seems like an overall great package. You know, you quickly forget, I think, when you're experiencing this vehicle, that this is the entry point to the Mercedes brand. There's just nothing that reminds you, oh, this is a cheap Mercedes. No. I mean, it's just a really impressive overall package, totally disregarding the price point.
So I'm sure a lot of you are concerned about the pricing of this all-new A-Class, because this is the most affordable Mercedes-Benz you can get your hands on, so that is a very intriguing thing. So with that said, the starting price for this model is at $32,500, and that's for the front-wheel drive model. The all-wheel drive system adds $2,000 to that, so the one as equipped, the 4MATIC system, is $34,500 is its base price. Mm-hmm. Now, there aren't any trim levels or anything, but you do have several packages, as with any Mercedes-Benz. And we do have quite a few of them checked off. So I'm going to name them off real fast for you. So here, according to the sticker, we have Mojave Silver Paint for $720, Natural Grain Wood for $325, 18-inch wheels, which is a $500 charge. Garage door openers, $280. Blind spot monitoring, $550. The pre-safe system for $405. Sirius XM radio with a free trial period for $460. Heated front seats for $580. 64 interior color ambient lighting for $310. And inductive wireless charging for $200. And the main package we have is the premium package, and that is $1,550, and that includes this nice display here, as well as quite a few other things. And then we also have the multimedia package for $1,150, which adds in the navigation.
Right, the important navigation system.
Correct. And then there is a $995 destination charge. So all told, this Mercedes, as equipped, comes in at $42,525, which does mean it has quite a few options on it, about $8,000 or $9,000 of options, but that is definitely not bad for a Mercedes-Benz, especially as nice as this one is.
Well guys, hope you enjoyed watching the first in-depth look at the 2019 Mercedes-Benz A-Class. Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.
Mm-hmm.